Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. Yep, it's that time again. Saturday evening, 9 o'clock, our favourite time of the week, and we always think, I'd like to think it's your favourite time of the week as well, because it is Jumping In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz from around the world with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, welcome along to this week's show, and what a week with the clear, warm air, bright blue skies and the sun cracking the flags. Sorry, I was dreaming there for a moment. Yes, damp is definitely in the air this year, as is a fair smattering of windy. But you know, in the Isle of Man, if you don't like the weather, some more will be along in a moment. Nonetheless, perfect weather to curl up in front of a roaring fire with Jumping In to keep you company. So, H, as the sure sign of spring growth is the fine crop of new releases that have headed our way, what's been keeping you away from the garden this week, and what's had you reaching for your wellies and waterproofs?
Well, appropriately enough, Mary Halverson's latest is called Cloudwood. Very appropriate on the Isle of Man. We'll be checking that one out. Always interesting from Mary, never less than a really good listen. Something which is always a good listen as well, the Clark Tracy Quartet, Given Time. I actually picked this up last year and I haven't given it a spin yet, and it might have a bit of knee-body.
And for me, well, we dance for freedom, we journey to where we welcome an angel, and to start, we stop and go. Here's Remy LeBeouf and Assembly of Shadows. taken from the latest release from saxophonist, composer and bandleader Remy LeBeuf and his big band Assembly of Shadows. That was Stop Go from Heartland Radio, which was released yesterday. Heartland Radio is the third released from Remy with his big band, and as usual, the 4 times Grammy-nominated band includes 22 of America's finest young players, many of whom we featured as leaders with their own groups on the show. Trumpeter Philip Dizak, trombonists Alan Ferber and Jennifer Wharton, and his twin brother Pascal on piano and keyboards. The music has taken a distinctly new direction this time. Remy was recently appointed Director of Jazz at the University of Denver, and on his journey from New York across country, he and his partner packed all their belongings into a 16-foot truck and set off on the 1,800-plus mile road trip. The truck had no Bluetooth, he said, or wired connection for music, and he says all we did was listen to the radio with the windows down. And when you're driving across the US, there aren't that many jazz stations. It's just whatever comes up. All the songs on the album were drawn from music we heard along the way. Heartland Radio, he says, is about having fun, about wanting to dance, sing along, and you can hear echoes of indie rock, R&B, dance, pop, alternative, and electronic music, all fused with his inventive big band scoring. For one, I can't wait for the next instalment of his journey to be documented.
Good stuff indeed. Next up, Clark Tracy. Still a massive presence on the British jazz scene. Producer, educator, record label owner, drummer, you name it. He's, after starting out with Stan, his father, of course, the great Stan Tracy, as I think 16 or 17-year-old when he first started drumming with Stan, and everyone was, Stan just wants an easy ride with his drummers now, but he's proven them all wrong. Has won the best British drummer poll in jazz several years running, if not bigger polls than that, but certainly he's topped lots of polls over the time, and is well known, as I say, for his production and education and everything else, record labels, as he is for his drumming now. His own groups, Clark Tracy quartets and quintets, have wonderful stuff, all out of the sort of post-bop genre, I would say. And none the worse for that. Given Time on 10 to 10 came out about 2007, I think. Jazz compositions by Bobby Wellens, Victor Feldman, Tony Crombie, Benny Green, Dave Newton, Ray Noble, et al. Wonderful stuff. Let's hear 7 Steps to Heaven. Terrific stuff. Great drummer, great band he had there then as well back in 2007. I think that was release mastered at the Clown's Pocket Studios. Always a great name. That Derek Nash runs those studios. A great friend of this programme. He does one of our stings and he's been over here 2 or 3 times I think playing down at the Centenary Centre. Lovely chap he is too, very chatty. Clark Tracy on drums, Arnie Samoji double bass, another friend of ours on the show, Gareth Williams at the piano, Brandon Allen on the saxophone, and we, like I said, we sometimes say this isn't car music. This one is.
He's got a new quintet out as well, introducing Emily Massa. No doubt we'll dip into that a bit later on. And, of course, besides his own label, he also has the Re-Steamed label, which
all
is
his
putting
dance
out
label, yeah.
all the stuff from old Stan releases, a lot of which haven't been on CD for quite some time.
And if you're fans, he also brings out, I think he brings out like sheet music and something, all sorts of stuff from Stan's estate.
All that stuff.
Wonderful.
Really, really worth having a dig. Now, we're lucky in so much as that there's an amount of wonderful music these days that seems to be carrying on coming out of the back of people's cupboards as we continue to unearth gems. This new release is from George Shearing, can you believe, with longtime friend bassist Neil Swainson. It was recorded at a concert given at the Paul Masson Winery back in 1991, which was released as a video at the time, but it's now available on disc for the first time. From it, here's the great Eddie Harris track popularised by Miles Davis, Freedom Jazz Dance. Fantastic stuff. Freedom jazz dance given that shearing touch in George's light and airy swinging arrangements in duet with bassist Neil Swainson, who they played together for many, many years. Of course, this is just a joy from start to finish. Both of the players are on fine form. It's sad to think that it's 13 years since we lost George. I was lucky enough to catch him at a concert in the New York Y back in 1999 with the equally brilliant Dick Hyman in an evening of piano duets. Now, for fans of Shearing's famous light touch and locked hands techniques, this is a treat not to be missed, simply called George Shearing in Concert, and is on the Arcadia Records label.
And very fine it is too. Yes, I never, sadly, got to see George live, but I still frequently go back to playing some of his recordings, and I was playing some of his early stuff on our sister programme, Sweet and Swing, only last night. In fact, some early recordings from Shearing back in the 1940s, I think it was. And I always love and still love the George Shearing quintet sound with the vibes and guitar. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Speaking of wonderful stuff, and something which is always interesting and always engages your ears and engages your brain, is anything from the American avant-garde guitarist Mary Halverson, who sort of churns out work at a prodigious rate of knots, and it's always a great talking point and well ranked by all the critics. Her latest, Cloudwood, is just out on the Non-Such label and finds her in fine form yet again. Let's hear the third track on the album, which has got the fascinating title of Collapsing Mouth. A weird title for a wonderful track in many ways. I really like that, I must admit. Collapsing Mouth, that is called. Mary Halverson with the Amaryllis Sextet, and if you remember last year she sort of released 2 albums, Amaryllis and Belladonna, at the same time. She's able to do that. She has a grant she got several years ago, which I think enables her to produce more than perhaps some other artists working particularly in the sort of fairly niche sphere of the avant-garde side of the jazz world. But yeah, she deserves all of her plaudits. And the Amaryllis Sextet are made up of Adam O'Farrell on trumpet, Jacob Garchick trombone, Patricia Brennan on vibes, lovely vibes playing there, Nick Dunstan on bass, long-time drummer Thomas Fujiwara, and also Laurie Anderson, yes, Superman, on violin on one track as well, and Mary herself on guitar, of course. Super busy all the time, despite the fact that, like I said, it's relatively niche music, I should say. She said she got a MacArthur Fellowship, that's right, in 2019, and obviously had a lot in lockdown. But she says Cloudwood, or a lot of time in lockdown to write. Cloudwood, she said, represents another shift in her music. It's the opposite of my previous work in terms of headspace. And my tendency was to overwrite. The biggest challenge I made consciously was to leave more space and breath in the music, and the continuity and stability is audible in Cloudwood. And yeah, I haven't heard all the album yet. What I've heard I've really enjoyed, and possibly more accessible than some the other Amaryllis or Belladonna to a degree. Wonderful stuff. I'd love to see her live at some stage. It'd be fascinating to see her. She's quite sort of intense. She's into yoga, she's into gardening, she's into all sorts of fairly meditative stuff, I think, to compensate for what is by and large a very hectic lifestyle. But in an article, I think in the Guardian it was, talking to, was it John Fordham, I think, she said, well, I wouldn't want, no, Andy Peter was, she said, I wouldn't want my life any other way, particularly after lockdown. I love getting out there. So, late night, followed by 5 a.m. start the next morning. Love it.
Yeah, she's done that quite often, actually. She has another group, which is a trio with Michael Formanak and Thomas Fujiwara, called Thumbscrew, and that was 2022 Belladonna and Amaryllis, and back in 2018, she again brought 2 out simultaneously, Thumbscrew and Ours. And as you say, this is a little bit more accessible, perhaps. Next from me, another duet album, and again, 2 old friends, and old friends of the show, so it happens. Saxophonist Trish Clues and Ross Stanley, best known perhaps for his spectacular Hammond playing, but this release finds him on piano throughout. Trish is currently the associate artist at the Wigmore Hall in London, and the pair recorded the album Journey to Where together back in 2021, and the album was released at a live concert held there just last week. Here's Ashford Days. Really, really lovely stuff. Trish Clues and Ross Stanley together on Ashford Days, taken from their new release, Journey to Where. And if you think that puts you in a mind, perhaps, of the playing of John Taylor, Ross says he penned the piece Ashford Days in homage to him. And he said, John Taylor continues to be a constant source of inspiration for me. The title was a nod to John's Ambleside days and also Ashford in Kent, where John lived for a period of his life. Trish currently is also on tour in a series of concerts with mentor and new record label owner, trumpeter Dave Douglas, which if you get the chance, I'm sure will be a real treat.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Would be very fine. Lovely, great player, a very nice person indeed as well. Trish, Dave Douglas we have spoken to, long time ago now, backstage at Bath, I think it was, or someone like that, and he did have a sting for our old show, I must admit, but he's, again, such a prodigious player. He does loads of educational stuff, he's always touring, he's always got a new band, and again, a bit like Miles, every time he brings another album out, it seems to be another direction, a different sound. He's never stops and sits still. It's amazing, really, it has to be said. I wish I could manage that. Yeah, you are listening to Jumpin In, Chris and H, and this is Kneebody.
Hi, this is Clark Tracy. You're listening to Jumpin In on Manx Radio.
terrific stuff. Donald Harrison from his last outing, I think it was Congo Square. Wasn't too sure about that at first, but actually it really grew me the more I played it and heard it in the car and heard it on the radio. I thought it was, actually not at all bad stuff. Before that, Kneebody from the album Anti-Hero. Best track on the album, it has to be said, but we were just saying they haven't done anything for a while.
No, but although Ben Wendell, the sax player, has been kept busy, he had a new release on Edition last year, I think it was, called All One, and they have popped up in various different places. Nate Wood, the bassist and drummer at the same time, was
amazing to
quite
see that
something.
live.
And worryingly, H, I hate to tell you this, I think of them as a young band. How long do you think Kneebody have been together?
Probably about 20 years.
23 years. Yes, indeed it is. Well, that's about it for this week's show, but we just got time to fit in a track from Polish drummer and composer Jacek Kochan's 1995 release, Grey Angel, featuring none other than Jerry Bergonzi on sax and the great John Abercrombie on guitar, with some fine Hammond playing from Dave Restivo. Here's the title track. See you next week when hopefully things are a little less grey.
Yeah, I wish.
Bye for now.